What is up, everybody? David Thule here. This is week number 1 of the Getting Started with Open Exploration video series, and today we're talking about base maps. So depending on your work history, you may have never made your own base map before. It might have already been loaded in your workstation or you know, what have you, made by a GIS expert. So today we're going to cover where to find the data you need, how to download it, how to get it into QGIS, how to edit the colors and change the style so it fits whatever you like. We're going to cover the normal things like state borders, county borders, land survey systems, well spots, but we're also going to discuss things you might not normally think of as a geo, things like a pipeline shapefile and maybe gas plants, or all of the sort of infrastructure details that go to make your prospect economic. So let's roll the intro and get right into it. If this is the first time you've had to assemble your own base map or really depend on your ability to seek out data in order to make a map like this, it can be really daunting. And that's because all of the data are stored all over the internet in different locations. Some of it comes from you know, state GIS websites, some of it comes from the Oil and Gas Commission of a state, or the Industrial Commission as it may be. Some of it comes from a state geologic survey or the US Geologic Survey. And so we've gone ahead and created a resource document that links you to all those locations, so you don't have to do so much hunting and you can just get down to the real work. So you can find that at geolumina.ai/OpenX resources. I'm going to type that out right here so you can see it on the screen, and you can go there and it's going to link you to all the details that you need depending on which state you're working in, and that will grow as the video series goes on. So right now it's just got like the base map stuff and well spots, but we'll add where to find logs, where to do all the other stuff that you need in the future. Thanks everyone for joining me over here at the computer. I'm looking at the screen, I've got it right in front of me, so you're going to see me coming back and forth between what I'm doing on the screen to show you and talking to the camera. So I'm going to be going back and forth from the screen to the camera, screen, camera, and you guys can just focus on your screen because that's how the internet works. So I'm going to show you a lot of different things. This is a long video, too long for LinkedIn. So this is like the quick hit list of what's in it, and jump over to YouTube to actually see the deep details. So we're going to load shapefiles. We're going to change the color of those shapefiles to style our map. We're going to change the thickness of lines, the color of lines, the labels, the opacity of the labels, the opacity of the shapes, all of the things that it takes to make not only a really visually appealing map, but a clutter-free map. I can't explain to you enough how critical it is when communicating geoscientific ideas. The map needs to be as unobtrusive as possible. You want to have all of the ancillary information, the well spots, the survey, the townships, the ranges, all of that in there, but like not plotted heavy ink on top of each other over and over looking like crap. Visual appeal of your prospect in geoscientific work matters. It's visual communication. So that's what we're going to cover. First things first, let's pick a location to work. I'm going to choose Wyoming, and specifically I'm going to choose the Powder River Basin. It's a basin I'm familiar with. I've built a lot of maps there before. It'll make the demo easy. But you can feel free to pick any state and location, or country for that matter, if you want to go scrounge up the data and follow along. So again, use the resources on the resources page. I'm going to do Wyoming. So we're going to start by getting some data. So one really easy way to do that is to go out to the internet and just do a search. I'm going to type in Wyoming GIS data. That's it. So what I find when I come up with that search is this place called Wyoming Geo Hub. It's a geospatial hub. So this is a place I've been before to get data, and they have a lot of it. So we're going to see a little search box here, And you can see I've already searched, I want counties. It's going to return for me anything that has kind of counties in the metadata. In this case, I'm going to download the first result, this DOR counties shapefile. If we click on that page, it's going to show us a little preview, and we can see that there are county files. So I'm just going to choose download, and I'm going to choose the shapefile. That's the easiest. It's kind of low drag. You could also do the spreadsheet. I wouldn't recommend the KML just because sometimes QGIS has an issue with KML files. They don't get created quite properly on the internet. It can be a pain in the neck. There's a way to solve it, but we'll fix that later. So just get the shapefile. I'm also going to go back, and I will see that there's also this Wyoming state boundary. So I want that too. Again, there's the preview. It just shows that it's the outline of the entire state. So that's a good place to get started. We might also go back to the search page and see if there's anything else of interest. We could look at like PLSS. I don't know if it's going to come up with anything. That's the Public Land Survey System. Oh yeah, sure enough, look at that. So PLSS sections, we'll probably have to zoom in to get a proper preview here because the sections are really small. And it may not load at all. Oh yeah, there they are. So there are the sections. We can download that. So I'm going to download that shapefile because I need townships and sections. That one will probably take a while. That's a pretty big file. So I'm also going to go and I'm going to grab these PLS townships. Again, you can see that it covers our state here. That's great. We're going to need those. I'm going to download those as a shapefile. And that's good enough to get us started. So let's get cranking with that. Here we are now in QGIS. All I did was download it from the QGIS download site. That's again in the resources. It's in blog week 1. And I just opened a blank project. And the first thing we're going to do is put a little bit of a background map on here. The QGIS comes with this nice feature called XYZ Tiles, and it will come likely preloaded with OpenStreetMap. And if I just click that and drag it over to the map area, I'm going to populate a map. And it looks a little funny. It's squashed because of the projection, but we'll fix that in a minute. It's just going to kind of reproject things on the fly, and we can choose conversions and things like that whenever we want to. So let's get started by just dropping in a state boundary shapefile. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to find it in my directory structure here, and I am going to turn off that preview pane. Hold on one second. Turn that off. And I'm going to find, like I said, the state boundary, and I'm going to find the shapefile. It's this .shp here, and I'm just going to, again, drag that into the area. And it gets a little misplaced in the first refresh, but as you zoom in on it, it is in the right place. The background map is just little picture tiles, and so they have different resolutions depending on how tight or how far away you're zoomed in on. So you'll see them kind of load up in a different fashion. So we can see that Wyoming here is blocked out by the Wyoming boundary. I turn it off, I turn it on. That's not really a great display. Let's go ahead and right click on it, and I'm going to choose styles, and I'm going to edit the symbol. What I can do here is I can go into the color, simple fill, color fill. I'm going to choose transparent on that. And the outside border line, we want a solid line. And we can choose any color we like. Style your map however you like to. That's green. That's a little tough to see. Styles. I'm going to edit again. I always just pretty much leave these like a dark gray, something like that color. And I usually bump up the stroke width just a little bit. So we got a nice good boundary. Again, I'll close this OpenStreetMap so you can see we've just got Wyoming here. Next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and put in the counties. Again, I'm going to just drag the shapefile over. Now I've got the counties. I'm going to, I want to edit those the way it looks again, so I'm going to double click it. I can go to the symbology tab. So pretty much any operation, you can either right click and go directly there, or you can double click. On double click, you can see that there's a fill here. Again, I don't want any fill. There are tons of styling options here. So I'm going to transparent fill that, and I'm going to pick a gray line again. You know, usually my state boundaries and my county boundaries are the same color, just a different thickness. That tends to work out pretty well. So I'll apply that, say okay. Now I've got counties. I want to put the township and range in here. So again, you know, I'm going to drag the townships. They're all in here. Again, we're going to edit that so that it doesn't have a fill. And townships, I like to have a pretty light color on them. And the reason for that is because I kind of want them to fade into the background as you zoom in and zoom out on this map. So I usually make them pretty thin, maybe a 0.08 thickness. And I'm gonna say okay. You can see they're just kind of hanging out in the background. I like them like that. Style it however you like. Some people like red for that. I always try to be really sensitive of red and green color blindness issues. So we'll try to stay away from colorblind problems. And then we're going to drop in the sections. Same deal. Man, look at all those sections. Double click. We are going to change the fill color again. Transparent. Again, we're going to make this an even lighter gray. And an even smaller line, maybe 0.04. Perfect, now they're all in there. We might also want to put a label on the stuff. So if we click on counties, we can click on labels. And if we go in here, we can basically add a single label to each feature. And we can choose what we want it to be. In this case, this shapefile has a nice county name feature. So we'll choose that. Font, let's change it. I don't know, use whatever you like. I like Arial. I'm basic like that. And we're gonna hit apply to see what this looks like. You can see them there. I hate really dark black labels. Again, like they just draw the eye. So I'll pick some color that's usually a little lighter weight. And I'll usually put a bold on there just because it helps with the lightweight. So that's good. We've got that. And let's also go ahead and put a township label on here. So again, we'll go in. It's important to do one label per feature when it's a geometry like this, when it's a boundary, a shape. So we'll do that. Again, we'll choose Arial. Choose bold. I'm gonna make these a little bit smaller. 6 maybe, that's good. Again, we'll make them a lighter gray. And I'd better pick the right field for the name. Let's try this one. I don't know this shapefile, so maybe this township lab is the right one. Yep, that's perfect. You can see it's in there. You know, you might also want to come into the rendering tab and you can set at what scale they become visible. So out here we're like 1 to 300,000. And so you can turn it off. So if I zoom out further, they're going to go away and provide less clutter on my map. And when I zoom in, they'll come back up automatically. It's a nice feature. The styling and setup options in QGIS is like almost infinite. You know, you can do all kinds of great stuff. So what I wanted to show you is what I like to do with a lot of feature labels, which is add some opacity or transparency to them. That way you can kind of see through them, no matter how they're stacked up on the screen. So let me show you that. If we zoom in to one of these feature labels, you can see like Campbell County, and it's scale dependent, right? So I've set it so that it kind of stays a relative size based on how zoomed in or out I am. You can mess with that too. So if you always want it to be the same size and be really big in your county, if you want it to change, you can do all that. But let me show you, if you go into counties, double click, we are just here on the labels tab, and there is an opacity slider. So if I bump that opacity slider way down and hit apply, you can see in the background here that the labels became less opaque, but none of the feature classes did. So that's really nice because you can set different amounts of opacity for the actual boundary of the layer and the label of the layer. It's super powerful. I love to put really transparent labels on things like townships, ranges, and sections. It usually works out really well for display. It prints a really beautiful map that just has a very light color on it. But be careful if your audience is primarily older, they can have a hard time seeing the very light color gradient on your maps. So be sensitive to that. Maybe have let's call them a senior advisor, look at what you've made and tell you if everything's legible, right? Same goes for font size. You know, your ability to see that changes with age. So don't get crazy and making everything microscopic like engineers do. We're geologists, make nice big labels. Here we are over at the geolumina.ai/openx resources page. And you can see here's some items that we can load up for our base map. I'm going to scroll down to this USGS Basin Shapefile link, and it is going to open a new window and take me over to this USGS publication 2012-1111. You can see there's a report about it. We don't really care about that. You can go in and read it. There's lots of good details. But if we download this file here that says Sedimentary Basins Database, it's going to download, and we're going to go ahead and drop it into our file structure. We're going to unzip it. And you can see there's files in there. So let's go ahead and put that in our map and see what it looks like. Again, we're just going to do this by clicking the shapefile and dragging it right into the window. This couldn't be any easier. Ooh, okay. So this is the first time this has happened. So it's telling us that the shapefile, the coordinate system doesn't match the coordinate system of our project, which is fine. There's a transformation. We can go in and look, you know, the accuracy is not very great. It doesn't really matter for our purposes. I mean, a basin scale shapefile, it doesn't matter if it's off by 4 meters. I'm just gonna click OK, and it's gonna put in the sedimentary basins. So, you know, again, it's red. You know, you probably want this up towards the top of the tree. So the order in the tree kind of puts the rendering layers on. So while we're at it, let's clean this up. PLS sections, let's put those at the bottom. The reason we're putting them at the bottom is because we want those boundaries to get covered up by the township boundaries. So let's put those next. And then the township boundaries are overlain by the county boundaries. So let's drop that down there. And then the county boundaries are delimited by the state boundary. So that's just good rendering order. Again, we can make this sedimentary basin map look however we want to. You know, there's probably no reason to do anything other than a simple fill. But if you want to, you could do a gradient fill. You know, in that case, we maybe want to do a radial gradient. You know, I don't know, let's just apply it and see what it looks like. You know, that's kind of cool, but it implies structure, right? So you kind of maybe want to stay away from that unless it's a structural shapefile. So let's just go back to a simple fill. I'm gonna make these, I just want them shaded a little bit. I don't really want them super intrusive. So I'm going to go ahead and pick again, oh, I love gray, 50 Shades of Geology gray. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to, I don't know, let's dash a line. Why not? We haven't done that yet. Let's make the outline color actually something vibrant, something we can see. We'll make that red, but we'll go ahead and we'll make the fill a light gray color. Apply, see how that looks. Okay, that looks interesting. Let's juice up those basin borders. Ooh, yeah, those are nice and thick. Then let's go ahead and let's bump the opacity down a little bit. You know, we want to be able to see through these things into the map and information behind it. So this is pretty slick. You know, I'm going to choose OK, and let's just zoom in on the Powder River Basin here. I like this. Again, we probably want to label everything, and you can always turn it off with scale dependence. So again, we're going to do a single label. Let's go ahead and choose Arial as a font. That worked. Again, it's like way too black. We don't want that. So let's do a couple of things. One, let's choose a lighter gray color. Oh, that's blue. Well, let's pick gray. Why not? Let's drag this thing here. That's good. And let's add some opacity to it so that it doesn't cover up anything that's below it. And let's bump up the size. And let's make it bold. And let's see how that looks. Do we like that? Oh yeah, that's pretty good. We probably want to choose where this label gets put. We can do that in the placement and also in the rendering tabs. So, you know, if we choose offset from the centroid, we can kind of put where it sits in relation to the centroid of the polygon. So let's just keep changing that. You know, we can kind of do whatever. There's a lot of options here, so I don't want to change it too much. I'll just put it back to a round centroid. Choose apply. Yeah, I don't like that. Yeah, that's better. You see how that's moving it? Now it's kind of in the center rather than offset because it's taking into consideration the whole geometry. So let's apply that. Now you can see when I zoom in, you know, again, it's still scale dependent. So however zoomed in I am changes that, and that's something else I can control, right? I can set that rendering value. So that's out here in text. I can choose points, I can choose pixels, I can choose meters at the scale. That's probably a good way to get different sort of sizes based on zoom. Okay, so when I've made something that I'm really happy with, like if I really like this style, I can actually save these so that I don't have to recreate it every time. I can come down here on this style tab, so I can do it on labels, and I can also do it in symbology. So if I want to save the symbology, I can go down here and choose style. I can choose save as default, which is going to make it. It actually adds it to the file structure right here. So this QGIS layers settings now is in here. So when I load from this folder, it's going to know what to do. I can also just save the style, and I can put it you know, somewhere. So you can see in my case, I've got it in a directory structure under GIS. I've got styles, and I've got all of these different styles I've already created. So let's see what my Basin outline style looks like. So I'm going to choose cancel, cancel. and I'm actually going to just load something that I like. So let me find it, Basin outline. I'm going to say open and choose load style, and you can see it's loaded up here, and I'm going to choose apply. This matches my brand colors from one of my companies, so I really kind of like this one. You can see I've got no label on it. Personal preference, do what you want. If we zoom out a little bit from the shapefile we're working on, we can see this is kind of a little bit unusual. There's a lot of overlapping figures here. I don't really love that, but what the USGS has done is they've kind of mapped out overlaying basins, or basins that overlie one another from different geologic ages, and put them all in the metadata. So let's look at this, so you get a little feeling for what's in here. So in the file is a province name and some metadata about it, and they've also got things like what its era is, its geologic era. So there's Neoproterozoic basins, there's Paleozoic, Mesozoic, etc. And the power of that is you get to think about the geology that happened over time, but I find for a lot of like oil and gas work that can be really redundant and a little bit obnoxious. So you can see over here, if we click on identify, we've got the White River Split Rock Basin and we've got the Shirley Basin. Well, the White River Split Rock Basin is Cenozoic, but it doesn't really reflect the present day basin configuration, so I don't find it super useful. So let's just go ahead and edit this file and get rid of that. So I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna choose toggle editing. And I'm gonna go ahead up here and I'm just gonna pick my little selector. And I'm gonna pick this basin. Oh, I'm on the wrong select mode. I'm gonna choose select feature, and I'm gonna deselect everything, and I'm gonna just select this one feature. I don't need this. This isn't super useful for me. So I'm gonna select it. It's highlighted in yellow. I'm gonna hit delete. Boom, it's gone. I'm gonna go up here, and I'm going to save my layer edit, and now I've locked that in. I don't have to deal with it anymore. So that's awesome. That's a great way to do it. You can see like we've got a lot of these other basins. Probably, this file can be cleaned up a lot, but just do it to whatever fits your purpose right when you're working on it. And later on, we'll save it as a Postgres layer or Postgres data, and you'll be able to serve it into all your new projects, so you won't ever have to keep track of like what you've deleted and why you deleted it and all that. So that's great. Another thing that you'll find by using a lot of public data is that maybe you don't like the exact way that the shapefile was created. So what I'm showing on my screen right now is that sedimentary basins of the United States that was made by the USGS, and behind it is an isostatic gravity anomaly map that also comes from the USGS. And for the most part, they've kind of picked out these basins pretty well, but a lot of the Rockies basins, the surface topography and stuff is complicated. So let me show you what I mean by that. So if I drop this other terrain map on here, if we're looking at the Powder River Basin, these are the Black Hills, and you can probably make a pretty compelling case that the Powder River Basin goes all the way up to where the outcrop is on the Black Hills. And so, a big chunk of this basin doesn't really line up with that physiography and geologic reality. So I maybe want to edit that. And if I turn that back off and I turn the isostatic gravity back on, I can kind of see like, the gravity anomaly maybe goes along with that and indicates some of these geologic boundaries a little better than they're drawn. So let's go ahead and make some edits. And I'm just going to kind of use both of these data sources, the surface topography and the gravity anomaly, to just make a rough change that I'm happy enough with. And it's also so that it encompasses a lot of the wells and fields that produce out of this area. So let's make some edits. So again, I'm going to right click on my sedimentary basins. I'm going to toggle editing on. Oh, looked like I already had it on. I'm going to toggle that editing, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to pick this little vertex tool. And when I pick it, you can see that the vertices of the shapefile light up, and also there's like this midpoint, and I can add a new piece to that by clicking where that midpoint is and dragging it outward. So, you know, maybe I want to start out and just kind of honor some of this gravity anomaly that I see, and you know, I'm not worried so much about the perfect gravity interpretation and all the details. I just want to try and capture a little more of what I think the basin shape is and how I would categorize it. Again, if I zoom out and we drag around a little bit, you can see this really comes into play in some of these more complicated basin shapes where there are like thrust faults that bound them. So if I turn off the gravity and I turn the terrain back on, you know, there's a lot of kind of little thrust faults and basin bounding faults and a lot of complicated stuff. And so I can edit these shapefiles however I want to in order to capture the geology that I'm pretty happy with. So, you know, another place I might do that is up here on the northern end of the Powder River Basin. It's kind of like a long monoclinal dip up to the mountains that sit here adjacent to the Billings area. And so maybe I kind of want to doctor that up a little bit, because there are some oil fields over here, and they seem to be fed by source rocks deeper in the Powder River Basin. So let's just try to honor that. I'm just going to click and drag and edit, you know, just kind of on the fly. And, you know, I hope that you will do this with your basin boundary maps as well, and think about the geology that defines it. Also, if I click on one of these spots right here, and I just hit the delete button, it'll just start deleting points so that I can go in and just drop a fresh one in there. You know, one of the kind of, I'll call it a contested region is down here along the Hartville uplift. You know, when are you out of the Powder and into the DJ? Well, there's these kind of reverse faults, and it gets a little bit complicated, and it's a little bit hard to see, but I think the gravity map helps. And, you know, if we turn that off and put the terrain map back in, you know, we can parse some of that out just through surface geology. And if you want to get really crazy, go ahead and get the smaller geologic quads and start putting them in. If it matters to your interpretation, or you're working on outcrops, you know, you can augment with all of this stuff. You know, a lot of times you'll find that like the basin margin doesn't really line up with the surface map expression, so maybe we'll edit that a little bit too. You know, this hogback is really prominent, right? It's pretty reasonable to call that hogback the margin of the basin, so let's just align some points to it. You know, boom. It only takes, you know, a few minutes to go in and make a better shape and a better map. And you might be thinking, well, why do I want to do this? And the reason you want to make some of these changes is because when we're doing spatial queries later, and you say, give me all the wells that fall within the Denver Basin, or within the Powder River Basin, if you have a shapefile that you like for what that basin outline is, you're going to get a better query, and you're going to have to do less editing on the back end. So let's grab some well spots and let's stick those into the system. Let's go ahead and put some well spots on the map. Again, I'm working in Wyoming. Specifically, I'm going to focus in on the Powder River Basin for this video series. But if we go to the geolumina.ai OpenX resources page, and we scroll down to where can I get well spots, I've gone in and I've made links to every state that is really meaningful for oil and gas production. And you know, some of them have some nuances to using the shape files in the details, so I've tried to annotate those there. So I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to go to Wyoming, And at Wyoming, I get to this page that's a little bit unintuitive, but there's this scrolly box here. And if I come down, I can find, you know, this well header data zip file. And I'm going to highlight it. And I'm going to click the bucking bronco. And it's going to start a download for me. So this one, in this case, it's like a, you know, couple minutes to download it. I've already done that, so I'm not going to sit here and make you wait for it to download. So instead, let me just pull it up in my file structure and I'll drag it in there. And I'm going to just grab this file. It's a DBF file. And the peculiarity of Wyoming is they actually give you two. One says PA at the end, and that stands for plugged and abandoned. And the other one says WH, and that's for well header. This is a little bit of a pain, but we'll make it work. This DBF file is kind of also a pain in the neck because it's not super easy to open with a lot of things. Like, you can go through a bunch of steps and open it in Excel. But what's really sweet about QGIS is that all I have to do is drag and drop. And you're going to see it's added here in my layer structure, but nothing happened on the map. And that's because even though this is a DBF, a database file, there's no known geometry. So we actually have to go in and create the geometry. So we're going to do that using the processing toolbox. So first, let's just go in and open this up, open attribute table. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's a pretty big attribute table. You know, there's 118,000 features in it. It's the entire state. So you can see there's some fields in here. There's a little bit of funkiness because it's missing the API number prefix and, you know, the state prefix. And so there's a lot of kind of cleanup that we're going to do. It does have this C API number, which is right here, and that's got dashes in it. We'll fix that and maybe make a new field out of it. So let me show you that here. So first, let's make a shapefile. So like I said, I'm going to click processing, and I'm going to open the toolbox, and I'm going to choose. I'm going to type in points, and you can see on mine there's this create points from layer from table. So I'm going to double click that, and it's going to ask me what is my input layer. I'm going to select that table that I've loaded. The X field, that is what is the X location, so that is the longitude. So I need to find the surface longitude. The Y field, that's the latitude. I'm going to pick that. There's an optional Z field I could put in if there is a Kelly bushing elevation. Yeah, there is right here. I could choose elevation or Kelly bushing elevation, but I haven't inspected my data. I don't know if those are filled out for every well, so I'm going to leave it off for now. I'm going to click run. And this is pretty fast, you know, for 100 and some thousand fields. I'll close that, and wow, look at that! I got well spots. That is awesome. I've got the dreaded state line boundary fault. That's the old geology joke, which is when you hit a border and you don't have the data across that border. And this is a key example. Montana. Montana, I don't know why your data is so bad and hard to access. So we're going to ignore the poor neglected portion of the Powder River Basin in Montana, even though there are some great important oil fields up here, really large discoveries. We're going to ignore it. So you can see that now I've got some well spots. I probably want to go in and change their symbology a little bit to match some of the conventions that we have in oil and gas, but I don't even know if it has a field for that. You know, if it's got a symbology field. So let's go in and see if there is something that tells me how I should symbolize these. You know, I'm just scanning really fast. I'm looking for something like a production code or a unit code. Let's see. Oh, yeah, well, I have a well class here. So I've got O and G. Let's assume that that's oil and gas. I've got a 1. I've got a 5. Ooh, so and a D. So we're going to have to do a little work to figure out what the symbology is here. Let's go back. And this is common. This is going to happen to you everywhere. It's a little bit of a bummer. So let's go back to the the WOGCC page, which is the Wyoming Oil and Gas Confirmation Commission, and we can choose data and new users. Maybe they got something useful for us up here about the way they have named their groups. And you know, let me pause the video here while I figure that out. Yeah, all right. I didn't have to pause very long. There's this table right here that says codes and symbols found here. Thank God. We've got the shapefile loaded up now for the well spots. Well, it wasn't a shapefile, right? It was a table of data, a DBF file, and we loaded it and we turned it into a shapefile using the geoprocessing tool. And now that we have it on the screen here, it's just some brown dots. And so we want to make this look more like oil and gas symbology. There's no native symbols for oil and gas wells in QGIS, but that's okay. I'll link you to a download file. You can download it. And the way you install that is by going to Settings, click on Options, click on System, and in there is this SVG path. Click the green plus button, go to your file directory where you just downloaded the SVGs that I'll link you to. Mine's stored in a folder called Map Symbology. I'll click on the Petro SVG and choose Select Folder. Since it's already installed in mine, I'm going to hit Cancel. But if we come back here, now we can double click, or first of all, let's look at the attribute table and see if we have an attribute we can use to classify these wells. So if we get in here, we're looking for something that's probably called status. You know, we could just use a classification code, but that doesn't necessarily show dry holes and abandoned and things like that. So instead, let's look for status code. It's probably just called status. So if we scroll over, yeah, here we go. We've got a status column, and it looks like those names match up. So, perfect. We can use it, and if we go in and then we double click on the points from table, and we want to set this at the top to categorized, and we want to choose the value to be status. And the symbol, we want to choose SVG, so we're going to choose here, and then we're going to click on SVG marker, and then we're going to scroll down, and you can see the Petro SVG symbols. That should look familiar. We're going to hit OK, and then we're going to choose Classify. Now, if the classifications matched the names of the SVG files, these would auto map, but because it doesn't, we're going to have to go in and just manually assign them. That's okay. It's not a big deal. It's just going to take just a second. So I'm just going to pick a few, and I probably won't do everything. Permit. So AP stands for permit. Remember, I'm just reading this off the status codes here. You know, and they may not have exactly what you want, and we'll make a better set. This is probably the biggest shortcoming in everything about QGIS at this point. So for, you know, I'm not seeing a marker that I love. And so instead, I'm just going to choose a simple marker, and I'm going to just use a circle, and I'm going to do no fill. And I like to make these red. That way, when new permits pop up, they kind of call to my attention. So, you know, we can do mixed symbology. We can do some of these as the SVGs. We can do some of them as simple markers. This one might be too big. Let's go ahead and just make it a 0.8 in size. DH, that's dry hole. We all know what that looks like. Hopefully we haven't drilled too many of those. There's a dry hole symbol. I'm going to choose that. Let's see, PG is producing gas. Where is it? There we go. That's a gas well. So let's go in and we'll just add a gas well symbol to it. Yeah, that's a gas well. And we've got a producing oil. Let's go ahead and map that. Cool, that's good enough for now. The rest of these, so we're gonna end up with little question marks because we didn't set everything. But you can go in and set them yourself. So now you can see, you know, as we zoom in, there are different wells here. We probably want to do something about the sizing now because you can see as I zoom in, they get smaller and smaller and smaller on the map. And you know, that makes it tough. So now that we have the wells on there and the symbology set to match the well status or however we want to symbolize them, right? We could also format them by like what formation they're completed in or how much they're producing or whatever, right? We have all the flexibility we want. Another nice thing that we can do is we can set the scaling. Because if you notice, when I zoom in and zoom out, the points automatically scale. You can see they're getting really, really small. And that makes it difficult to see. So we control that by going into the symbology table. And again, if I click on one of these and I choose the SVG marker, I want to choose this unit box to be map units. And then I want to click on a little wrench here. And I have a couple of options. One, I can change the range at which they scale. So like when I zoom out far, they won't necessarily keep getting bigger. Or when I keep zooming in, they won't necessarily keep getting smaller. I can also set the size range, basically just set a very narrow window of what I want that scaling value to be. So in this case, I've set it to a minimum size of 6 millimeters and a maximum size of 6.5. So in this case, this is the dry hole symbol. You can see it on my map right here. So if I choose apply and I choose OK, you can see that when I zoom in, it gets smaller, but only up to a point. It doesn't change that size. So let me show you now if I change the parameter the other way around. So if I go in and I tell it that I want to use the other version, so I want it to stop scaling. Like I don't know, I'm pretty zoomed out right now, 1 to 100,000. Like I probably want to put that more like 1 to 250,000, and I want to stop it. Maybe, I don't know, I've never done it this way. Let's try 1 to 25,000, and let's just see what happens. If I click OK, ooh, those are really big. Let me figure out what went wrong there. Oh, I probably also want to set these size numbers. So let's see what happens when I do that. Yeah, so now, you know, when I zoom in and zoom out, I have a little bit more control over the sort of size that they change. you can see they're no longer getting smaller, but you know, maybe that's not exactly what I want. So you can play with it to taste. The other thing we might want to add to our project are pipelines. And you know, we're probably interested in the pipelines because they help us understand if our play is going to be economic. You know, how far we got to go to tie in and whatnot. So let's click on the pipelines link, and we can just scroll down. This is the EIA website. They have a lot of great shape files and useful things. So I have to remember what it's called. Yeah, here we go. Natural gas, interstate and intrastate pipelines. So I'm just going to download that shapefile and drop it into our file structure again. And we will see what this looks like. So I'll just unzip it. And I'm going to grab the shape, and I'm going to drop it in there. Oh yeah, look, we got pipelines. You can see the lines here. They're a little bit faint. So let's do a couple of things with that. Let's go in and we can change our line a little bit. You know what might be fun is let's see what's in this layer. Maybe they've got like the size of the pipe. Oh no, that's unfortunate. You know, in a more detailed state level shapefile, what I would look for is maybe the capacity of the pipe or something like that, and I would use that in order to symbolize this. You know, like a heavier line being a higher capacity pipe. So in this case, we don't have that, but let's just go in and make it a little bit more visible. Let's see if we like that. Yeah, that's pretty good. I think this color is a problem. You know, it's very pale pink. You know, we're gonna color it kind of maybe a salmon color. You know, red for gas. We don't want to make it super offensive. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And I think the other thing we're going to remember is that the rendering order matters. So let's go ahead and put this underneath the well headers so that, you know, when you zoom in, the wells actually overlay and overprint on top of it. You know, we might actually want to also add just a little bit of opacity. I love using the opacity on the layers to get the look I want. You know, it makes everything just a little bit less offensive. In terms of how it looks when it's all mapped together. Let's turn our terrain off. And yeah, you can see, like, you know, we've got a pretty good base map going. You know, we probably at some point want to focus down this layer a little bit so that, you know, we don't have every well in Wyoming on it. So that's what we'll look at next week. We'll look at kind of tailoring these layers to customize your base map and really get a project that's focused in on your area of interest. So something about the way QGIS works that may be unintuitive for those that come from ArcGIS background is that you know, when we used this table to make this points layer, it actually created it in what's called a scratch layer. So you know it's a scratch layer because it's got this little button over here. And that just means, like, right now it's temporary. And so if I were to close this project or try to quit, it'll tell me, hey, you've got temporary layers, and if you don't save them, they're going to be lost. So the easiest way to do this is just click on the little symbol here, and you can save it any format you want. I like to save as a geo package these days. It's kind of like a layer file from Esri, but it's a little more portable. You could also save it as a shapefile if you want to, but if you do that, it's not going to have all of its symbology and stuff with it. So we're going to save it as a package, and we're going to call this Wyoming. This is well header, WH, and we're going to put SYMB on there because we symbolized it. that's really all we need. We can select the destination location. In this case, I'm going to drop it in my OpenX. Where am I? Desktop. OpenX week 1. And I'm just going to save it in here as a geopackage. And I'm going to choose OK. And now I have it saved. And it is ready for me to use next time when we reopen. And you'll see, you know, that's saved. And now it doesn't matter if I get rid of this. So I can actually go into this week 1. And if I look under type and I find geo package, there it is. I can drag it in, drop it on the map, and it's in there. I didn't save the symbology, so I probably want to do that with it in order to get it to go along. So that's just a little point I wanted to make about you really have to go ahead and make sure that you look for those scratch layers and you don't leave them there unsaved. Thanks everybody for following along on this step 1, getting going with Basemaps, getting started with open source exploration. Really what you can add to your maps is pretty limitless, and the ability to style them is totally up to you and your personal taste. So I hope you will download some data in your area of interest, make a base map, and post it up in the comments here because I want to see what everyone has created. So go ahead and do that and let me know what you think. Thanks.